Our whole life can go by and we never leave this place. We may travel to distant lands, meet new people, gather stories, have adventures, but fundamentally, nothing changes. I remember reading a book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I can remember the room I was in, the bed I was sitting on. I turned a page and I came to this line, happiness is boring. It's when nothing is happening. No drama. And it was, whoa. For me, that was just mind-blowing. I remember putting the book down. I couldn't read anymore. I just had to let that settle. Happiness is boring. It's when nothing is happening. So that was completely contrary to everything I'd ever thought or lived up until that point, really. You have these moments in your life where you feel contented, you feel satisfied, but it's not really explainable. It kind of comes and it goes. It's random. So how to make that predictable? How to make that more accessible? And anyway, you quickly get busy with other things. So here I am, I'm actually in a retreat, reading this book, and happiness is boring. It's when nothing is happening. So what is that saying? It's saying happiness is way simpler than we ever thought. It's much more accessible, much closer to home than we ever thought. And we're always going to extremes, isn't it? Isn't it? Anyway, for this world-weary adventure travel guide, this was serious, major news, and a real contradiction, actually, to everything I'd ever thought and known. Because what is the usual? We are looking outside of ourselves for the answers, for excitement, for solutions, for satisfaction. Always looking outside of ourselves. To the point, in my case anyway, where you'd risk your life just to feel alive. So going really to extremes, or entering into conflict, or into sweetness. Any kind of distraction just to get what we want. And what happens quite often? We overdo it, things go tits up, and then we get upset. It seems we'd rather that than things just settling out and finding this stable level of contentment and just being able to rest there. So what this was saying to me was that boredom is actually a good sign. It means we're getting closer to what we're actually looking for. The mind is always looking outside of ourselves for distraction, pushing us further, faster, further away from home, if you like, making us more off balance, and yet we're continually unsatisfied. So this happiness is boring is just like, you can be happy sitting in a room quietly by yourself. Nothing extra needed. Maybe, you felt similar, where after 5 years or 10 years of doing the same thing, it makes less and less sense. You start to realize that you're barking up the wrong tree. But we keep doing it. It's almost too simple to believe. And there's a lack of alternatives, isn't there? Isn't there? But my own feeling was, it was like being starved of oxygen. Slowly, it was becoming less and less oxygen, and it was becoming more and more desperate. Almost on an internal level, more and more difficult to breathe. And so a sentence like this is just like opening the windows, taking the roof off, the walls around you falling down, and you find you're sitting on top of a mountain in all that space and freshness with this amazing view. So simple. And right here as well, you're not sitting on top of a mountain looking at the next mountain you want to climb or wondering what's in all the valleys and hills in between, just resting in the view. It's like, okay, so just sit still, be quiet, let things settle, see what's there. The irony is that sounds so simple, but actually it's the greatest adventure. You try it. Maybe you have tried it. It's bigger than all the other trips I've been on, is going nowhere, doing nothing. And what do we find when we sit still? Well, probably whatever tendency we have in our life, that's the itch that will come up for us as we sit still. So how do we usually soothe this restlessness? Well, with noise, with busyness, with scrolling, with numbing, extreme sport, ice cream. We all have our own. Any kind of distraction rather than just sitting still. Whatever we end up doing, jumping up and doing, that's just scratching the itch. And it's reinforcing a habit. So we need to sit past that. That's the challenge. Just sitting past that, sitting through that. When boredom pops up, bored, staying there, seeing what's beyond that, because we don't know what lies beyond that, because we're always, the moment that happens, we're into distraction, whatever that is for us, into our pattern, into our habit. And if we stay this side of boredom, never going through boredom, we can spend our whole life doing that, doing nothing new, different, not seeing anything in a new way. So the crux move, they often talk in climbing particularly, they talk about the crux move. It's the bit that's most physically demanding, or maybe the most technically difficult to have success, to get to the top. You need to navigate this crux move. So the crux move in this situation, let's make it sound exciting, is just doing nothing, being still, going nowhere, feeling it. To do anything other than sitting still is running away. It's running away, and we'll have to face it another day. So this is really a hoop we can go through and see what the world looks like from the other side. So doing nothing. Doing nothing should sound like music to our ears, but even for lazy people, it's actually difficult. It's much easier to just mindlessly follow our patterned way of being, follow our habits, to numb, to avoid, rather than actually facing up to being still, doing nothing, feeling a little bit uncomfortable, feeling that restlessness. But the good news is that being still doesn't necessarily mean not moving. Being still is our awareness is unmoving. We're undistracted. So it is possible to move in a way that supports our awareness to become more stable. And that's a way where we move with body, breath and mind unified. And one way of doing that is called Kum Nye. That's what I enjoy to share. That's what's really benefited and works for me. Because what that does is, it means when we feel this restlessness, we can move, but without being distracted. So it's like a bridge. Because we have deeply rooted tensions in the body and in the mind that make us restless, that interfere with meditation, interfere with our ability just to sit quietly and go through and discover, to see what lies beneath it. So this is a support. This kind of movement, this kind of breathing is a support to help us go beyond and find this stable contentment, well-being. It costs no money. Don't have to go anywhere different. Don't need someone special with you. Don't need a special suit or equipment of any kind. Just being able to sit still. And then when we come back to physical stillness, when we come back to meditation, if you want to call it, well, maybe we won't call it meditation, just sitting still. Meditation could be tricky. Sitting still, difficult enough. So when we come back to physical stillness, we find it increasingly easy and pleasant to continue. That's what we want. We need to be able to find a way to enjoy sitting in stillness like this, because then we'll come back to it. And actually, honestly, to break some of these tough habits, we need to practice. It's called practice, meditation practice. We need to come back to it again and again and change some of these tough patterns of always reaching out, looking elsewhere, wishing things were different. The problem is, if we stay this side of boredom, we're in the land of habit, of familiar patterns, of mindlessness and unawareness. Our whole life can go by and we never leave this place. We may travel to distant lands, meet new people, gather stories, have adventures, but fundamentally, nothing changes. So how does this sound to you? Just sitting still and feeling the restlessness and going through the familiar, the habit, the pattern, into a new way of being. So we're merely noticing the boredom, sitting with it, sitting through it, not acting, not reacting, until we emerge at the other side. And initially it comes as glimpses, or like a whiff or a glimpse, like, oh, simplicity, that's where it's hiding. So happiness is a tricky word. I prefer words like contentment, satisfaction, fulfillment. And it's not like we receive all of the answers to our questions that have been nagging away at us for the whole of our life. It's more like these questions themselves dissolve, they become irrelevant. So boredom is a good sign. It's the layer we need to go through in order to discover this contentment, this stable well-being. And it's there that we will find the simplicity, the quietude, satisfaction that we're looking for, not in all the excitement. Actually, for me, it just feels like a big sense of relief. This is something over the years, over the decades, just a sense of relief, but also each day. Each time I sit, I realize it's crept back in or on. And each time I sit, this sense of relief is renewed, if you like. And that relief becomes more convincing until it becomes joy. It stabilizes into joy for no reason. We don't need a reason, something external to us. It's just a sense within us that we can relax more fully, feel that relief, that becomes joy. Satisfied, no longer hungry for experience. The happiness we generally know, we're sort of up and down, and it's not in our control because we're always dependent on outer circumstances. Happiness and sadness in this kind of way. And then there's this where you can see that there's an undercurrent of well-being, that regardless of outer circumstances, we can feel well. It's like there's a space or a refuge within us that we can contact, that we can connect with. So it can help support us through difficult times and help us really appreciate the good fortune in our lives. So the bottom line is, whatever our outer circumstances, whether we're enjoying good fortune or we're really facing difficult challenges, if our mind is settled, if our mind is calm and clear, we'll be better able to find solutions and enjoy life, this short life. So if you feel like you've looked everywhere for happiness, then maybe, like me, this was a last attempt, last-ditch effort to find something that would work for me, then maybe you want to give meditation a try. And if you find meditation too much of a challenge, or that's your conclusion, that meditation is not for you or it's too difficult, then maybe by using the practices of Kum Nye, by using movement, using breath, it can help guide us into a stillness that, as I've said, becomes increasingly easy and pleasant to continue. And then we can really see what all the fuss is about. It's not what he said or what they think. We really want to experience it for ourselves. And then we begin to trust it, have more confidence, and then it becomes our go-to. It doesn't mean we have to sit in a room on our own for the rest of our life. Once we find this, feel this, it becomes our new habit, then that's the really fun bit actually, is taking it out into the world and integrating it in our everyday life.